All right, here we go. After spending the better part of the weekend getting the garage a little better oriented and organized, got a little bit more room to move. So I think that today, probably in the next couple of hours, I need to get some lunch in me. I think in the next couple of hours, I'm actually going to start taking the Roadstar apart and start the build process. A lot of work to do. I'm gonna get my dry erase board out and hang it and set up my order of attack. There's lots of stuff I'm gonna have to do on flat ground before I ever get it up on the lift, and like I think I'm gonna have to do the rear end before I do the front, because before I put the rake trees and whatnot on, obviously I have to pull the forks out. But since I'm doing air ride in the front, I'm also gonna have to get I'm gonna have to tap the top of the fork cap to put the air nozzle in. Got to change the springs and things like that. So while I could go ahead and redo the front and test fit everything, dry fit everything, and then pull it all back apart to go through and do the air ride, I'll have to see. I'll make a judgment call as I go through that. But I've got to start off pulling the exhaust, pulling that fairing off, pulling the seats. Just lots. I got to pull the back wheel off. Obviously, if I'm going to do rear air ride, I have to be able to get underneath and change out the air cylinder and the lowering links and all that stuff. Bars have to come off. Lights have to come off. Everything on the back end has to be stripped off to put the bags on. I have to put the bag brackets on. So there's a lot to be done, and I'll keep shooting video of progress and the process, and keep tuning in. So in the process of getting the garage organized, I got some more shelves and put them up. It made it a lot easier to be able to see all the parts I have instead of looking at them in just a big pile on a table. The fender, the bag lids, the bags in those boxes are a bunch of different pieces. The new air intake, the brake caliper mount. I'm probably going to do electric actuators on the bag lids, so I got those in there. A couple of air cylinders and different air ride parts. Chin spoiler, the big 13-inch rotor, my pistons for my front air ride, along with the spacers for my front wheel. Obviously, the wheel is there, the rake triples, just parts everywhere. There's a fender under there, the 26-inch fender. There's some handlebars down there. What else there are? The bag brackets are down there too. So just being organized, being able to see what I have not. Parts that are still remaining to come in. I haven't gotten the internal controls yet for the throttle and the clutch. That will be forthcoming. But it's just a lot better to see it like this, spread out, and have an idea where everything is, and not run the risk of tearing something up while I'm trying to grab it off a pile on a table. So, looking forward to getting started. Whoop, whoop. During the disassembly process, there's probably a lot of stuff I'm not going to video. Because taking things apart is the easy part, taking bolts out, taking parts off. And until I get to something where it's like, hey, you need to take care when doing this, and if I've already gone through the process, I might just take stills of where I am or what I've done. But pulling the seats off, pulling things off, just anything that's just taking off a couple of bolts and removing a part, I'm not going to bother videoing that. But I wanted to say that up front, that way if all of a sudden I start shooting a video and there's pieces missing, people aren't like, hey, wait, where'd that go? Unless there's an absolute reason for me to video it because there's a trick to it or something like that. I do have my climber manual, and everything I'm going to do and take apart that's going to require me to look at the manual and do, I'll get it right out of the book, and if worst case scenario, I'll shoot pics of the page or something like that. But anyway, just wanted to put that out there as a disclaimer. Well, let the process officially begin. Start with the easy stuff. Yes! First part done. It only goes downhill from here. All the tools on the table nearby. Get the party started. So with any project, especially if you're going to be doing anything electrical, always disconnect your power from your battery. I'm actually going to pull the battery completely out of the bike. You never want to run the risk of shocking yourself, grounding something out, whatever the case may be. And like I said, in this case, because of the amount of work I'm going to be doing, I'm just going to pull the battery completely out anyway. Negative terminal off first. And yeah, get it off. And I'll be doing stereo work, so probably going to end up changing some of the wiring in here. When I do my air ride, I'm probably going to end up putting the manifold right here in this gap between the battery and the back of the frame. So I'll probably have a manifold there. Not sure if I'm going to have my solenoids there. I'll probably run the blow-off valves down in the bag area. So I'll have to see how that's going to work out. Man, battery's got some heft to it. Duralast. All right, so that means they got it from, I think that's AutoZone is Duralast. 620. Oh, that's a relatively new battery too, so that's good. Like the sound of that. Got bolt back here for the pillion seat. 12 millimeter. This is probably boring stuff, and probably the majority of disassembly, if I am going to film it, I'll probably fast forward through it because, again, there's no reason for you to watch me take out a few nuts and bolts. It's kind of unnecessary and boring. If anybody has suggestions for different seats, I'm still going to do 2-up riding with my wife. So I'm still going to want a nice set of seats. But these studded seats are not going to work for me. Don't like them. They're not going to go with the look of the bike. And they will likely be for sale. So anybody who's got ideas on what I can use, or if you're interested in buying any of the parts that I take off the bike, that I say, yep, I'm getting rid of those, I'm going to sell those, feel free to message me. I greatly appreciate it. Got to get my T-handle Allens. Too much stuff that's got to be done with an Allen not to have those handy. Take the backrest off. And the previous owner of this bike had put the backrest on without any type of bushings or anything between the bracket for the backrest and the fender. So I actually scratched up the fender a little bit, which is disappointing. But it happens. Handles over there on my welding table. Something else I was working on. And also, the previous owner, or somebody in the past, had put bolts that were way too long in the backrest mount. The backrest mount, and the bolts were sticking through the holes and actually tore up the sidewall of the back tire. So when I got the bike, the sidewalls were just destroyed, and I couldn't figure out how that could possibly have happened. And the backrest didn't come in with any bolts. And when I went and purchased bolts for the backrest, it became pretty apparent that that's what had happened. Was the person put bolts that were just way too long, and they were sticking out the other end or the other side, and tore up the rear tire. So, you know, when you're doing any type of modifications, any type of work, anytime you're replacing parts that came from the factory, make sure you check those lengths and those tolerances, because what you don't want to do is go and tear up part of your bike because you didn't pay close enough attention to the length of a bolt or screw or something that you put in. All right, so that's the seat, the front and rear seat, and the backrest. These will have to find a home where they will go during the course of the build. It's the only thing about doing a build in your garage is that your parts that you're putting on take up a lot of space, but then so do all the parts that you're taking off. And what I'll probably end up doing is boxing up quite a bit of this stuff because I'll end up selling a lot of the stock stuff. So we'll see how that works out. I'm going to take a break from recording for a bit. All right, so if any of you guys are considering doing this or taking the fender off for any reason, I had to get the brackets off. Well, if you're just taking the fender off, you don't necessarily have to do this. But I took the bracket off that holds the pillion seat on, so that's gone. I'm going to save the bolts because the fender that I'm putting on is an overlay fender, and even though I'm going to do a panel bond to hold the fender on, I may still drill the holes and put these screws through or these bolts through as well. I have to see what the best fit is going to be. Also, you have your wiring that comes back from just here under the seat and comes all the way back to your lighting back here. The rubber grommets that hold all the wiring in, I don't know if you can see that, they're all just coming apart. And not that that's necessarily going to cause a problem if it's coming apart on yours, but you know, take a look at it. If it's something you want to go through the effort of replacing, it actually looks to be two pieces. It doesn't look like that tore necessarily. That looks pretty clean. But that would be kind of strange if from the factory they had something that was cut, unless it was done that way. So that way, if they wore out and you took one out, then you can wrap the other one around and put it on without having to pull the wiring through. Kind of hard to tell. Like I said, it's clean, but it's not straight. It's still kind of angled. So I don't know. Just thought I'd throw that out there just in case. And also there's 3 bolts that hold the tail light housing on. And with the longer fender, you have pretty good view in there. Instead of straining myself to get a wrench in there and turning it, I just put 2 extensions and a universal joint on my ratchet. Like so. And was able to get in there and turn it and get it on there. And I actually did all 3 from one side. I didn't even have to go from one side to the other in order to get those off. All right, moving right along. So I'm taking everything off the fender because I'm going to use the fender and I have to have all the lights and whatnot off anyway. But to get the fender off, really, and I didn't even look at the manual to see this, take the bolt out of here and it's going to separate the entire fender from the frame. So I've taken that bolt out. Again, I took everything off the back anyway because I'm going to use this fender, but none of that stuff can be on there. But to get the fender off, it's just that bolt. And even though I have my climber manual, and I probably could have looked in there and seen that before I took a whole bunch of stuff off, but I didn't. Anyway, moving on. Comes right off the entire thing. Sit that under the table here for now. That that fender's pretty heavy. And for anybody who's never seen what the bike looks like from the back without the fender on, there's a good view of it. Actually makes that tire look really small compared to how fat the back of the bike is. So I got lots of stuff to do back here. Ooh, loads of fun. Loads of fun indeed. All right, so I've got the bat wing off, or at least the front of it off. And now I'm going to take the stereo and speakers that I put in there. It's interesting. I literally ran this thing for a week and a half, 2 weeks maybe. Actually rode it on the street. And I figured as long as I'm going to ride it, I want to have some music and be comfortable and all that good stuff. But I don't know that I'm going to keep the bat wing. And if I don't, I will put it up for sale. Probably like 150, 180 bucks, something like that, without the stereo. Definitely keeping the speakers. They're really not marine speakers, and I'm going to use them for something else anyway. But the stereo, I might leave in there. I don't know yet, because depending on what I do, I don't know if it's going to work. But that is a Boss marine stereo, and I only do it to stream music anyway, so I'm not really too worried about the lack of functionality, even though it actually does a bunch of stuff. It's Bluetooth and can talk on the phone and stream music through it. But it's also got pre-outs for amps and all that other stuff. And so I might still use it and actually mount it in the bag, which is probably where my air pump and my fast up tank and everything are going to be, probably in the bag. So again, like I said, if I decide I'm not going to go with this fairing, I will put it up for sale. Batwing 6x9s with the round hole for a marine type stereo. It's already got a charging port in here. There's actually a switch on the bottom side for the power. And then there was another hole. I just kind of threw my USB charger through here. I didn't put anything in there because I knew I wasn't going to keep it on here permanently. But again, if you're interested in it, it's got the tinted windscreen, the little 4-inch tinted windscreen with it too. It's in good shape. All right, moving right along. Pulled the bat wing off, just pulled the front fender off. I got to pull off the windscreen mounting bracket. And I keep thinking about it more and more. I think with my raked triples, I don't think I'm going to be able to use this bat wing. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to put that up for sale. Like I said, it's in decent shape. And I'm guessing that means I have to sell the windshield bracket with it. One, because that's how you're going to mount it. Two, I can't use the windshield bracket with my new raked triples because there's no holes in the front to mount that bracket. So yeah, that's going to go away. All right, so I'll put that up for sale too. All right, I had to pull the headlight out in order to get the housing off, to access everything underneath here, to include the windshield bracket. The only thing that's going to be, it's not a challenge, the only thing to make note of is, for me, the signals, I believe this is, the blue and the white, they go through two different holes in the bracket. So I just need to make sure that I bring them out to their respective plugs through the correct hole. No big deal. Well, it can never be 100% easy. Moving right along with the deconstruction of the donor bike. Taking the windshield mount off, which is what was holding the batwing fairing on. And of course, what should be a 2-minute job has turned into a 20-minute job so far, and still more to go, because this bolt right here is just a little bit rounded out. Ugh! It's always something. So now I'm gonna have to drill that one out, so that's just gonna add time to it. It can never be easy. Anyway, moving right along. All right, update on progress. I have I put the bike up on the small lift, so I have the wheels cleared off the ground. I was taking the front end apart, and I got a little frustrated because one of the heads on a bolt that's holding on the windshield bracket is rounded out. It's an Allen head that's rounded out, and I got to drill it out. But instead of wasting time doing that right now, I was going to do some other things and come back to that. I don't need light for that as far as outside light and such, so I wasn't going to waste my time. I've gotten a little bit more of the front pulled apart. Got the headlight off, headlight bracket is gone. The turn signal bar, running light bar is gone. I've removed or released the splitter for the front brakes. This is going to go away, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. You'll notice, for instance, this front brake cable is incredibly long, as are the throttle cables and the clutch cable. When I first picked this bike up, it had 20-inch ape hangers on it, so it had these just super long cables in order to be able to work with the ape hangers. But when I took those off when I first got it, because I'm kind of short and I look really silly riding around with my arms stretched up like that. But when I took them off, I just put bars, my stock bars from a V-Star on here. But the cables are still really long, but I knew I was going to take everything off anyway. The splitter's going to go away, obviously, because I'm going with a single front rotor and caliper, so there's no need for a splitter. This cable's actually also going away because, just like I said in the first episode, I'm going to go with very clean bars, take everything off. I'm actually going to link my front and rear brakes with the rear brake pedal. I will put a proportioning valve on so that I get the correct distribution of braking power front to rear, somewhere in that 70-30, 65-35 range, so that I don't lock up a tire when I'm going down the road. But that's what I'm going to do for that. I told you that the throttle cables are going to go away. My throttle cable is going to be internal, completely internal to the bars, so these cables will go away. I'm also doing the same thing with the clutch, so this cable will go away and the clutch cable will be internal to the bars, and it'll be a twist clutch and not a lever. Moving right along, I couldn't help myself. I wasn't going to put the front tire or front wheel on. I don't have the right triple trees on yet, so I'm going to mount it up just to kind of give a dry fit. It's not going to be in the right position. It shouldn't be touching the frame or anything like that, but I really just want to mount it up, excuse me, just to make sure that the spacers that Jason Woody made for me are correct, and to make sure that I have a good dry fit with the wheel itself. And then I'll have to pull it off because, again, I need to pull the forks to change the springs in them, to put the pistons that Jason also made in order to do my front air ride. So this is just going to be a dry fit for the wheel to make sure everything is in place and lined up. I could probably even pull out the fender and dry fit it too to make sure that it's going to line up with the fender mounts on the forks. So stay tuned. That's where I am right now, and I'll get back to this thing here either later tonight or tomorrow when I'm not too concerned about the light outside or the time. All right, keeping it pushing. Just wanted to give you guys a quick look. These are the spacers for the front wheel that Jason Woody cuts. He makes them to order. Man, they're just works of art. He did the same thing for me for my 21-inch wheel that I put on my V-Star. I gave him some measurements. The size of the axle, he would know already because he rides a Roadstar, but the size of the axle, the distance from inside the fork to inside the fork, the width of the wheel that I'm using, and he calculates it all out, and then he cuts these out of billet aluminum, out of stock. Just really well done. So I wanted to give him a shout out for that. I'm definitely going to put his information, his link, or his information in the video below the video. That way, if this is something you're interested in, hit him up. He does really, really good work, and as long as the billet is in stock for him to cut it, he's pretty quick in getting them done. All right. I figured I'd bring you along on this journey with me. I'm going to go ahead and test fit the wheel. So I figured I'd go ahead and record that process so you can see what I was doing. Obviously, it's just like mounting any other wheel. except that I've got these spacers because this is a DNA wheel, so it's a Harley style wheel, American style wheel. Comes with a 3/4 inch or 1 inch axle, and so I got my measurements over to Jason Woody, and he cut these gorgeous spacers for me. So what I've done is put moly grease on the smaller edge of the or the smaller portion of the spacer, so it'll go ahead and slide into the bearing races with ease. Roll this bad boy over. I've taken the brake calipers off. I mean, there's only going to have one anyway, and the one that it was on there is not the one that's going to stay. Oh wow, that lined up pretty good right off the bat. Nope, I'm going to have to raise the wheel up just a hair. I think, yeah, I got to raise the wheel up just a hair. Jack the bike up. Yeah, and those I mean, the spacers are perfect. Stock rear axle. Oh, moved it a little too much. Blooper's reel, blooper reel. And now I can't get the, come on axle, there you go. Oh yeah, that turned pretty considerably there. Can't make this stuff up, folks. Can't make it up. There we go. That's one. And I think I raised it up a little too much. I'm going to get my rubber mallet just to give it a nice little tap. What I didn't do is, since it was a dry fit, is I did not put any additional moly grease on the axle. That is through. And so long as the threads are lined up, should be able to tighten this right in. And the threads are not lined up. See how far off I am? Turned just a hair. There we go. Now you know I'm not making this up. And I will not edit this out. I will not edit out the blooper reel. But I will definitely lube that axle up before I put it in again. And that's a nice spacers, perfect. Jason knocked it out of the park yet again. And I will have to space out the caliper mounts because the wheel is narrower than stock. Oh gosh, was I? Yeah, there we go. It's a good deal. I think I might go ahead and take the fender out too and see what the fender is going to look like on there. Shooby-doo-doo-doo-doo. Fender should be right in here. It's a big old fender. So I can just sit that on there. And oh yeah, I got to get the space or the adapters for that too to work. There's special fender adapters to be able to line them up with the mounting points. But the fender is going to sit something like that. I might massage that a little bit because that's up too high for me. I want it to sit closer down. So what I'll do is I will lay some probably 1/4 inch rubber hose on the tire and tape that down and set the fender on top of that, because that's roughly the clearance I want to have between the fender and the tire, and fabricate new mounts based on that clearance. But that's gonna look pretty good. Let me switch this camera around. Oh, that did not work at all. I'm gonna stop it and restart. So yeah, overall, that's a good look. Let me turn the handlebars. Like I said, I'm gonna throw some hose down on top of the tire and tape it down so that I can establish the appropriate clearance for the fender. But yeah, that wheel looks sexy on there. Very nice, very nice. And now I got to take it back off so I can put my raked triple trees on there anyway. But a good test fit, good dry fit. Shout out to Jason. All right, so I took the wheel back off, and now I'm going about taking all the controls and everything off the handlebars so that I can pull the bars off, pull the forks out, take triple trees off. So now I've gotten, this is the last control I got to take off, and that is the clutch lever. I'm just kind of letting everything hang and lay on the floor for the moment, just so I can get everything loose. I've actually already taken the bolts out of the bottom of the handlebars, so they should slip off. And now, I'll set these back here and on the floor. And now I've got a pretty naked front end. So, I need to take the covers off, get the forks loose, and get those out so I can take the triple clamp off. I think I'm gonna call it a night for tonight. Go in and chill. It's starting to get pretty cold outside, but I think I'm gonna leave her as is for the evening. End of day one of deconstruction.